All right, let's dive into accounting. We're looking at a Cambridge IGCSE and O-level accounting teacher's guide today. I think even if you aren't studying for these exams, this is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, this guy's really about the why of accounting.
Making it more interesting for
Yeah,
sure.
way more interesting. And it can apply to like so many things, not even just business.
Well, it starts with planning a course. It
Hmm.
breaks it down into three levels: long-term planning, medium, and short-term. And I feel like this is something that you could apply to learning like anything.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like, if you're learning the language or something, so your long-term goal is like fluency, right?
Right.
Medium term, you're like, I want to get these verb tenses down, and then your short term is like your daily practice.
Yeah, it's like setting yourself up for success from the beginning.
Yeah,
But it also talks about being flexible. Like not everything goes according to plan.
right. It's not always linear, is it? Like, remember when you tried to learn guitar? You probably had to like try a couple different approaches before you found what worked for you.
Exactly. Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. It talks about this thing called the learning pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, it's like at the bottom is passive learning.
Uh-huh.
You're just listening to someone lecture about accounting.
Right.
The retention rates there are really low.
Yeah.
But then as you move up, you get to active learning, where you're actually doing things. So instead of just reading about how to like balance a ledger, you're actually doing it.
Right.
Maybe even like setting up a mini business or something.
Uh-huh.
The guide says that that's where the real magic happens.
And I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
You probably remember things from when you like helped your friend organize their finances way more than you would some accounting lecture, right?
Yeah, totally. Okay, now here's something interesting. They talk about language skills, which I wouldn't necessarily immediately put together with accounting,
Yeah, that's a good point.
but it makes sense.
It does, yeah.
Because if you can't explain what the numbers mean,
Right. What's the point?
yeah.
If you can't articulate, like I had a client once who almost lost a major investor because their previous accountant just was terrible at explaining things clearly.
Yeah.
And so, strong communication skills are definitely a must in this field.
You're not just crunching numbers, you're telling a story with the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of what the point they hammer home in the guide.
Yeah.
It's really encouraging teachers to make language development like a core part of their lessons.
So we've got planning, active learning, language skills. It's like they're building a well-rounded accountant from the ground up.
Yeah, totally. And then speaking of holistic, I guess the next thing they talk about is differentiation, which is recognizing that we all learn differently. And they break that down into three types: by outcome, task, and support.
So some people learn best by doing, some by listening, some by reading.
Yeah, exactly. So differentiation by outcome might mean that like students can choose how they want to demonstrate their understanding. Like some might want to write a report, others might want to do a presentation, some might want to build a spreadsheet model even.
That's so cool. It's like playing to people's strengths.
Totally.
What about the task differentiation?
Task differentiation might be like giving students like different levels of complexity in their assignment. So someone who's like already pretty good at accounting might get a more challenging problem to solve, whereas someone who's still grappling with the basics might get a task that's focused on like, foundational concepts.
It's like meeting each student where they are.
Exactly.
And what about the support part?
Support could be things like providing additional resources for students who need it, like extra practice problems or one-on-one tutoring.
Oh, okay. So everyone is getting the support they need to succeed.
Right, yeah. That's the point.
Okay, I'm already seeing how this guide goes way beyond just teaching accounting.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how people learn best and creating an environment where everyone can thrive.
Yeah. It's got a lot of insightful stuff in here. And speaking of insights, the next thing they talk about is assessment. That dreaded moment of truth when you have to prove what you've learned.
Uh-oh, yeah, that can be nerve-wracking. What kind of advice do they give?
Well, it's not what you might expect. They actually discourage cramming and memorizing facts.
Okay.
And they emphasize like deep understanding, like the kind that allows you to apply what you've learned to like different situations.
So it's not just about regurgitating formulas, it's about actually knowing how to use those formulas to solve real-world problems.
Right, exactly. It's all about moving beyond memorization and fostering like true comprehension.
Okay, so no cramming allowed. But what about like practical tips, like how to study for an accounting exam?
Well, they talk about this thing called distributive practice. Have you heard of that?
Distributive practice.
Yeah.
Fill me in.
So basically, it's the opposite of cramming. It means spacing out your study sessions over time instead of trying to cram everything in at the last minute.
So like instead of pulling an all-nighter before the exam, you study a little bit each day for a few weeks.
Right, exactly.
Oh,
And they also emphasize like the importance of taking practice exams, but not just to like memorize the answers,
right.
but to get familiar with the format, the timing, the types of questions you might encounter on the real thing.
It's like a sneak peek behind the curtain before the big show.
Right, exactly.
And I feel like, honestly, these tips apply to any exam, not just accounting.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's solid study strategies that can help you succeed in anything, really.
Okay, so we've covered planning, active learning, language skills, differentiation, and exam prep. Wow, this guide is packed.
It is, yeah. But we're just getting started. Next up, we're going to delve into the practical exercises and examples that they provide to help you really solidify your understanding of these concepts.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we laid some groundwork there with some big picture stuff from this guide. Now I'm ready to get into the actual accounting stuff. Where does it go from here?
Well, it keeps building on this idea that accounting's not just about the numbers.
Right.
It goes deeper into communication, even including specific exercises to help students get better at explaining these concepts.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're not just crunching numbers in a vacuum. You're communicating them to someone,
Right,
a
exactly.
client or a board of directors or something.
You have to be able to explain what the numbers actually mean. And that can be tricky sometimes. Breaking down a complex financial concept into something that a normal person can understand.
Yeah.
I've found that using analogies can be helpful.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's like translating accounting into plain English.
I like that. So it's not just about knowing the jargon, it's about being able to communicate effectively with people who might not. What kind of exercises do they suggest for building those communication skills?
Lots of interesting ones.
Mm-hmm.
One that stood out to me was having students present financial information as if they were explaining it to a friend or a family member,
Oh, that's cool.
which forces them to, make it relatable.
Yeah. Take it out of the textbook.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I can see how that would be way more effective than just memorizing definitions.
Absolutely.
Another one they suggest is writing a press release summarizing a company's financial performance,
Interesting.
which helps them, figure out how to distill complex info into key points.
Yeah.
And tailor the message for their audience.
It's like they're getting real world experience, but not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they go beyond, basic communication skills.
Yeah.
They also encourage teachers to help students develop their analytical and critical thinking skill.
Oh, okay.
So they can interpret financial data and draw their own conclusions about what it means.
That's a big one. It's not just about plugging numbers into a formula. It's about understanding what those numbers are telling you about a business.
Right. Exactly. It's like being able to spot trends.
Yeah.
Identify potential problems,
Yeah.
make strategic recommendations based on the data.
So it's like being a financial detective.
Totally. Yeah.
Looking for clues, piecing together a story.
Exactly. And to help with that, they suggest using real world examples and case studies, to really make the subject matter more relevant.
I am a big believer in the power of story. It's way easier to remember a concept when it's tied to a real life situation.
Right.
What kind of case studies are we talking about?
Well, one example they give is analyzing the financial statement of a local business,
Okay.
like a coffee shop or a bookstore or something,
Oh, cool.
where students have to figure out things like, okay, is the business profitable?
Right.
Are they managing their cash flow effectively? What could they be doing better?
Oh, that's great. Like they're getting a behind the scenes look at how businesses actually operate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It takes these abstract concepts and grounds them in a real world context.
Yeah.
Makes it more tangible.
So accounting isn't just numbers on a page. It's about understanding the financial realities of running a business.
Right.
Okay, very cool. So I'm seeing a real theme here with this guide.
Yeah.
It's very practical,
Yeah.
very hands-on. What else?
Well, the guide also has a section on assessment prep, but like we talked about earlier, it's not about memorizing answers.
Right, no cramming.
It's about developing a deep understanding so you can apply it.
Yeah.
And they even suggest using technology to make things more engaging.
I'm all about using tech to make learning more fun. What kind of technology are we talking about here?
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Mobile apps, online simulations, even podcasts.
Yeah.
There are apps that can help you practice accounting concepts, like on the go,
Oh,
waiting for the bus, in line at the grocery store.
turn downtime into learning time.
Exactly. Exactly. And then there's online simulations,
Okay.
which are really helpful for like putting your knowledge into practice. Some of them like let you run your own virtual business, make financial decisions, see how it all plays out.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Like a video game, but for accounting.
Right. And of course, they recommend podcasts like this one to help students, stay engaged with the material.
Right. So it's like having an accounting tutor in your pocket. I love that. Okay. So embracing technology to make learning more interactive and personalized. What else is in there?
One thing that impressed me was the emphasis on like formative assessment.
Okay.
They encourage teachers to use like frequent quizzes, exercises, check-ins to gauge student understanding.
So it's not just about the big test at the end.
Right. It's about checking in along the way,
Yeah.
making sure everyone's on track, and to use those check-ins to like give personalized feedback and support.
So it's like a personalized learning dashboard for every student.
Exactly. And we haven't even touched on one of the, I think, most important aspects,
Okay.
which is this focus on differentiation.
Right, right. Catering to different learning styles, because
And-
not everyone learns the same way.
Exactly. And this guide is all about making sure that everyone gets the support they need. And they offer a ton of specific strategies.
Like what?
For example, using like open-ended tasks. So instead of giving everyone the same multiple choice quiz, maybe you have a project where students can like choose to make a presentation
Okay.
or write a report or build a model or even like design a game.
I love that. Giving students the freedom to showcase their learning in a way that feels authentic.
Exactly, exactly. And it also allows the teacher to assess the learning, in a more personalized
Yeah.
way. Another example is like providing different levels of like scaffolding and support, based on individual needs.
So some students might need more structure, some might be ready to, just kind of go for it.
Right. It's about providing the right level of support at the right time.
Okay. I am loving this differentiation piece. Like they're customizing the learning experience for every student.
That's the idea, yeah. And speaking of goals,
Yeah.
they also talk about like the importance of helping students set their own learning goals
Yeah.
and track their progress.
Oh, yeah.
Using different methods, self-assessments, peer feedback, just regular conversations.
Oh, wow. This guide really is taking a holistic approach to education. It's not just
Oh.
about teaching the content, it's about developing the whole student.
Exactly. And that holistic approach is really clear when they talk about the final assessment.
Okay, back to the dreaded exams.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that they have a more enlightened approach to assessment than just rote memorization.
Oh, absolutely.
We already know that cramming's a no-go.
They stress the importance of like practicing past papers, but not as a way to just memorize answers,
Right, right.
but to identify your like strengths and weaknesses
Yeah.
and focus your study efforts accordingly.
So using the exam as like a tool for self-assessment.
Exactly. Exactly. And they even give tips for like managing exam anxiety and performing well under pressure.
Like having a coach in your corner.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they also emphasize getting feedback on your performance, not just from the teacher, but from peers, even from yourself,
Oh, okay.
to identify areas where you can improve, develop strategies for the future.
I love that. It's all about empowering students to take ownership of their learning and, strive for improvement.
It's a remarkable resource, really. And it's really cool. It goes beyond just preparing for the exam.
Okay.
It also talks about the importance of like lifelong learning.
That's a big one. It's not just about passing a test. It's about developing, a love of learning that'll stay with you.
Exactly, exactly. And that the skills and knowledge you gain in an accounting course can be applied to so many things.
Yeah. I mean, whether you end up being an accountant or an entrepreneur or just someone who wants to, manage their personal finances well, that these lessons are valuable.
Absolutely.
I think we need to take a break here. This guide is packed with so much good stuff. All right, my brain is definitely in accounting mode now after going over all that. I think one thing that really stuck with me is how much emphasis they put on making this stuff actually relevant to students' lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to, teach the rules and the procedures, but it's another thing entirely to help them see how it actually plays out in the real world.
Right, it's like the difference between reading about baking a cake and actually getting your hands dirty in the kitchen.
Exactly, exactly. And this
Okay.
guide is all about getting your hands dirty, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Yeah.
But they encourage teachers to connect these concepts to things students actually care about, like planning a trip or saving up for a car or even starting their own
I
business.
remember when I first started learning about budgeting, it all seemed so abstract until I started applying it to my own life. Like, okay, if I want to go on that backpacking trip, how much do I need to save each month?
Right.
It became a tool, not just a chore.
Exactly. And the guide has a whole section on budgeting that uses like these really relatable examples. Like it even talks about using budgeting apps and tracking your spending,
Oh, cool.
which is something that's super relevant to, young people today.
It's like they're giving them a financial toolkit that they can actually use.
Right, exactly. And they don't shy away from like the ethical considerations either.
Oh, okay.
They emphasize like honesty and integrity,
Yeah.
transparency.
Which makes sense, right? You're dealing with people's money. There's a lot of trust involved.
Exactly. They need to know that you're handling it responsibly and ethically. And the guide talks about some real-world situations where those ethical principles might be, challenged. Like what happens when a company is facing pressure to meet their earnings targets, or when there's a conflict of interest between different stakeholders.
Oh, wow. So it's like preparing them for those tough situations.
Right, exactly. And they also talk about the importance of staying up to date on the latest like standards and regulations, which, as you know, are constantly evolving.
I bet. I mean, the financial world is always changing.
Totally, yeah. And they highlight the role of technology in that. They talk about like cloud-based software, data analytics, all the stuff that's changing accounting.
It's like they're preparing students for a career that looks very different from the accounting of the past.
Right. And the cool thing is they weave those themes throughout the entire curriculum. It's not just like a separate chapter on technology.
Right.
It's integrated into everything.
It makes sense. I mean, technology is such a big part of it. You can't really separate the two.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-mm.
And then they also highlight the importance of developing like those soft skills.
Oh, yeah.
Communication, teamwork, problem solving.
Those are essential for any career, but especially in accounting where you're working with, clients and colleagues and things.
Exactly. And they give some specific examples of like how to actually incorporate these into lessons. Like you might have students work on group projects where they have to, collaborate to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Or give presentations, where they have to communicate their findings.
It's like they're creating a little mini accounting firm right in the classroom.
Totally, yeah, yeah. It's a great way to prepare students for the real world, where those soft skills are just as important as the, technical stuff.
So to sum all this up, this guide's about way more than just teaching accounting. It's about setting students up for success in a field that's changing really fast and equipping them with the knowledge and skills they need.
It's a holistic approach. You said it perfectly. It's about more than just crunching numbers. It's about thinking critically and communicating effectively and ethical awareness.
This deep dive has really been eye-opening for me. I'm walking away with a new appreciation for the whole profession.
Me too, me too. And I think, you know what? This guide has some valuable insights for anyone who's interested in accounting, even if you don't want to, become an accountant.
Yeah. It's got all kinds of practical advice that can help you manage your finances, understand business, make good decisions about your money.
Totally.
So if you're looking to learn more about all this, I highly recommend checking out this guide.
It's a great resource.
Well, that wraps up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of accounting. I hope you learned something new.